Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hashtag Gaming Arena YouTube channel. Today we're going to be watching pre-release gameplay of the One Piece card game. Today we have, on the left side, we have the Eustace Kid deck piloted by me. On the right side, we have the Crocodile deck piloted by Michael. Say hi.
Yes, hi, that's me. I'm Michael.
Yeah, I kind of put you on the spot there.
Yeah.
So we're both Digimon players. We
Correct.
both come from a lot of play Digimon. Actually, Michael's the one who got me into Digimon.
Yep.
But so we're kind of adventuring into this new One Piece card game together. Something that's really interesting that we found is in Digimon, you set up your security first, and then you set up your hand. In this game, you set up your hand, look at your hand, see if you want a mulligan, which is put 5 cards to the bottom and then draw 5 off the top, and then you set up your health. And so what that creates is that it's actually kind of a lot nicer than how it worked in Digimon, where you can't lock cards out of your deck by putting them in your health or security first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go to an overview as like, what does your deck do, the Crocodile deck specifically?
So far as I noticed, because this is the first time I've ever played the Crocodile deck for this video, I've noticed that the Crocodile deck has a lot of effects that return your opponent's characters to their hand, like just bouncing them back off the board, so they have to be forced to replay them. Outside of that, I noticed there were some cards that would like search, but I feel like most of the decks have a search card at least. And yeah, that's so far as all I've noticed.
Yeah, so for my deck, the Eustace Captain Kid deck, it's based around giving all your Supernova cards a lot more. What is this number called? The power. A lot more power. Yeah.
More power.
And then being able to restand or untap your cards. And so you'll see me do this a lot of times. Eustace Kid has an inherent perk that says activate main once per turn, and then with the cost of 3, I can trash a card from my hand to set this leader to active. Oh, I misplayed that.
Set this leader to active.
This leader to active, yeah. I did it a few times where I set other characters to active.
This is why it's important to read cards. Yeah, so like here, for being the first time I played this deck, I am actually already misplayed here because I ended up playing Buggy, which is that 1 cost 3,000 power character card. I realized now after playing it, it does absolutely nothing on board. I thought it was just going to be an early body to swing, but it can't even swing over anything because the leader cards are all 5,000.
The point of, I mean, the big difference between, of course, us two is that in Digimon, when we throw down like a 1,000 power or 1,000 DP creature or character, we can just swing with it, and it'll hit into security. But in this game, you have to make sure it's equal to or bigger than the opposing leader.
Correct. Yeah. Which is why, I misplayed that. I noticed that a lot of those cards, the cheaper cost cards, are typically cards you just want to use for counters rather than actually make them a character on the board, because or else that means you have to super buff them with more Dawn cards, which then takes up more of your resource. And then I also noticed I actually misplayed again. I kept on using my Crocodile Leader's effect to activate main once per turn, return 4 Dawn cards from my field to the deck to return one character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. I ended up doing it a bit too early. I think I should have kept more Dawn on the board so I have more resource to play out more cards and or stronger cards, and or even just use them to buff up my current characters rather than spending it to bounce a card that they can potentially just play it back again.
And something that's it's very interesting with this game is that because it takes you 2 turns to bring back the Dawn that you already removed from your deck, the purple deck does the same, the Kaido deck, where you're actually going to remove Dawn from your play area, put it back into your Dawn deck, and you gain effects based off that. But the key point is that it has the
they also have the reverse. They can play out an extra piece, tapped or rested, to kind of make up for it.
Yeah, with a Nigashima. And basically, this deck doesn't seem to have that, right? At least when we played, you didn't seem to see anything like that. So it's kind of a risky play, and I think the best bet for that deck is to be able to return key pieces. But it isn't just about unswarming the opponent's board.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's something I noticed. Like, definitely one of your cards that said...
Which one?
It was the one that the middle one on your left piece right there. That card.
Extra egg.
Yeah, extra egg. Where that's the one. That one says if you have a Dawn, when attacking, while this character is rested, all your other characters and leaders get 1,000. That is definitely a key piece. I feel like I should have bounced that more so. But then, being that it's relatively cheap to play, felt kind of pointless just to bounce it back to your hand, so that you would play it again.
I think the big thing is because you also use Dawn to power stuff up, bouncing cards back to my hand means I can't power up other cards or use that effect for the turn. So it would have hurt me a lot here if you bounce that. And also, it would hurt me a lot if you bounce it to hand. Also, because it needs to be rested to do its effect, I can't attack with it the turn it's played. So it's going to stop me from getting these small incremental buffs that are going to make it harder for you to counter. Because now I'm swinging with the 5,000 Eustace Kid, right? Because it has the buff of the X-Drake, you have to drop 2 counters, or drop a counter of plus 2,000 to be able to stop that.
Correct, yeah. And it also makes it so that you don't have to use your Dawn to buff it up, which means you have those Dawn to use for more cards. Which also, in hindsight, I think just the effect of bouncing cards to the hand, I think it's, thinking about it, it might actually be a really bad effect, because if I'm bouncing one of your cards back to your hand, that's just another card you can potentially use to counter.
Yeah, that is something very interesting.
And hand size is very important. So like if I bounce a card to your hand, yes, it's off the board that they can't attack me with, but then that means it's another card in their hand that they can use to counter more so, or use it for other reasons.
Yeah, like in this game, you end up bouncing my Scratchman Oppo, and what that does is it's a plus 2k counter. So it made it so that on my last turn, or on close to the end of the game when you attacked, I was able to use that as a counter.
Yep.
And so me being able to swarm the board with blockers here, I'm kind of in danger right now. You have 3 bodies on board. You could theoretically load up some of your smaller bodies to be able to swing for me. And so now I put 2 blockers on board. I have the option to use the event card Repel, which is a 2 cost that says your leader or one of your characters gains plus 4k power during this battle, then set one of your Dawn cards to active. And I have the option to use that to keep 2 Dawn unsuspended, so I can use that there, but I choose to suspend 2 of my Dawn instead to just play 2 blockers, because my thought process is you're going to have a harder time using Dawn and using effects to be able to get rid of those.
For sure. Especially since, like I said, the leader card, Crocodiles, you have to return 4, which is super expensive. You don't really want to use it on a blocker, but there was a part of the game where I was actually just thinking about it just to get off the board. And yeah, I think the blocker, like having the blocker cards, them being at 1,000, they were not really going to be blocking too big. They were only going to be blocking 1 attack, really. And it seems like outside of, at least of my deck, I didn't notice there were any bigger blockers than the 1,000, whereas other decks, I think purple...
Kaido has one that's 6,000, I think. Yeah.
It's like 6,000 or 7,000, which is ideally super high.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be super strong. Just having a higher power blocker in general is just going to be really valuable.
I think something that's another thing that I kind of noticed is how, I mean, we talked about it earlier, right? You attacking me really early made my hand really big. And so that made it so that I had a lot more options to deal with your attacks now. Like, again, you attack with that. I pitch a heat to gain it, let me give one of my, I think you attacked my X-Drake. Yeah, so let me give my X-Drake plus 1k so it could survive. And now that I have this big hand economy, I have 2 blockers on board, and I have a counter card in hand, it gives me just a way to just wall you out. Like, you're not able to get anything done here. You attack over,
I mean, it could be a yes or no, because I think the big, what really changed the scale was the fact that I returned my Dawn super early.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that effect for Dawn I really should only use when I'm at, max Dawn, when I can't get any more Dawn each turn. So that I at least have resource, I have the resource to then play out and or buff my cards even more so that you can, you would be forced to use your counters more so to block my attacks. Like, if I had 10 Dawn, if I had kept the same amount of Dawn as you had, and I used all, even half of that Dawn to buff up one character, 1 or 2 characters to the point where you have to use multiple cards in your hand to counter that attack or else it goes through, then that's still a plus for me. Versus me not having as much Dawn in my field, I can't use as many Dawn to buff up my character. It means you only really have to use 1 counter card per attack.
I think that this use of Dawn right here at the end of your turn, where you minus 4 Dawn to bounce the X-Drake back to my hand, is actually really good here, because I had 4 bodies on board which are able to swing for a game, and you only had 3 health left, and I also had the X-Drake, which would give everything a plus 1,000 buff. And so there, I think, is, we're getting into the late game. I have these established pieces that are going to be helping me out a lot. So it's going to be helping me out a lot, that's going to help. Again, I mistakenly used the Eustace Kid effect to restand my, which one is it? My Trafalgar Law. Ultimately, it didn't really do all that much because I could have just restood my Eustace Kid, but it is about that card economy that I didn't read the card properly, so I didn't pitch a card, I didn't discard a card to use its effect. And if I had to do that, and if I had done it, it would decrease my hand size. It would decrease the amount of counters I had. I wouldn't have as many resources to be able to kind of counterplay what you were doing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I after this game, I already noticed, I can notice right off the bat, you having more Dawn is super important. Using your effects early to prevent them from playing the stuff earlier is not so much important, especially I guess since the character limit you can have is only 5 at max. If they have 5 relatively weaker bodies on board, they can't really replace it with anything new in their hand. So having more Dawn too, then increase your characters more so and attack with them more so that they have to use more cards in their hand, I think is super important.
And I think an interesting factor of that is that in this game, it makes those on plays a lot less powerful than they are in Digimon, because when you choose to use something for a maybe slightly weaker on play, what it ends up doing is actually hurting yourself to an extent, because it takes up space in your board.
I would say yes or no, like because in my deck, in the Crocodile deck, there is a card with an on play effect to bounce. I believe it is a 3 cost room. Let's take a quick. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to play it this game, but
yeah, it bounces a 3 cost or lower back to my hand. I mean, that can be good on your final turn when you need to kill me to get rid of a blocker or get rid of something that's giving me a lot of value. And so now we see you're trying to swing at me, and I'm just using all my resources to wall you out, my extra Dawn, my extra counters, and you're not able to get in at all. And so now with all the resources I have, I'm just going to be able to stack Dawn under my pieces. I swing with the X-Drake first to make sure that everything already has that plus 1000 buff. Use the blocker there, and then as you see on the next thing, actually you take the hit there. See on the next.
But yeah, so as I was saying before,
yeah.
Cards like with an on-play effect like Martial Teach, which I actually did play this game. I realize now on the card on my right side of my board, has it's a 4 cost to play with an on play to return 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to your hand. I would honestly rather use this on play for the 4 Dawn to bouncing up your board rather than returning 4 Dawn to my Dawn deck with my leader effect to return something higher. I think just being able to, again, keep the same amount of Dawn that you have at the start of your turn is super important, rather than taking that resource and putting it back in your deck for you to have to wait to build back up into.
And just
I think on-plays effects would still be pretty strong.
Of course. Just to jump to a different topic, I mean, we're seeing how much this hand size economy matters. You got a bunch of hand size from being able to draw a bunch from me hitting into your health, and now as I swing, you're able to barely stop my attacks by pitching 4 cards at a time. Now your hand is almost completely decimated.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Right? And initially, I was a big critic of the counter system. I didn't like that you could just pull it out of your hand, but now, after playing it, after testing it some more, I understand the purpose of it, right? You're controlling your opponent's hand size. Your opponent has to get rid of cards that they could have used otherwise to be able to stop your attacks.
Yep, and because they can't draw as often like they can in Digimon, being able to protect your guys enough but not using up all your cards in your hand is super important.
Yeah, and now we're looking at the board. I have a really wide board with a ton of Dawn available.
And a ton of cards in your hand. I only have 2 cards in my hand.
Yeah.
And not as much Dawn to use, so. And yeah, I was at this point where I realized like that extra card, the buggy on the board, was entirely useless because it can't block, it can't attack, it can't attack without me putting a large amount of Dawn underneath it for it to be a threat. Which I think you have 1 blocker on the board anyway, so even if I were to swing with it, you can either easily block it or use a counter card in your hand because your hand.
Yeah, I tapped 2 to use the repel there, and that gives me plus 4k on I think you're attacking the X-Drake there. Yeah, it gives me 4k plus on the X-Drake you're attacking there. And then now it just seems like you're trying to attack, and I pitch a counter card to block it. Yeah, now at the start of my turn, you have no blockers. I have 3 bodies on board. I'm able to end the game.
I do have 1, but it didn't
have
really matter. You have 4 bodies, so it's really nothing really much I can do here as well.
Yeah, I mean, so in total, I actually did really enjoy this deck. I really enjoyed this game. I learned a lot about kind of that general use of kind of that hand size. We keep talking about this hand size, about being able to control your opponent's hand by just straight up attacking them. They have to get rid of something that they need. And so, I mean, we saw that in this game specifically. But, I mean, ultimately, what were your thoughts on the game?
Overall, I think the game itself has some pretty good like foundations and really good things that they can build upon. Compared to Digimon, where they have like again the power, being able to increase that power by even just 1,000 is super important. Because compared to Digimon, you just have to be over it. Like each of the different levels in Digimon, they're all different, varying range from like 3,000. Level 4 goes up to like 7, 5, 4, 5,000.
Yeah.
Level 5s are 8,000. And then it goes up to 12. At least for this one, each one is roughly like either 1 or 2,000 difference. It's nothing too big because that difference is actually super important in this card game.
And because you have to go over something to block it,
or at least match.
Or
you have to block it.
You have to go over something to block it. If you attack with a 6K against my 5K leader, I have to counter by plus 2K.
By 2 cards, correct. Or by counter
or something that has 2K. And so, I mean, in total, I never really realized how much depth the game had. I playtested it a bunch. I wasn't a giant fan of it because, frankly, I was playing the game wrong. But I really enjoyed this game. And so I would say definitely if you get the opportunity to, sign up for a super pre-release. Come have fun, try the game. If there's a super pre-release near you, go ahead and sign up for it. If we are already sold out of ours, but once we start selling once we start selling One Piece cards in December
is or
so,
the first,
swing by #GamingArena, pick up some decks, pick up some friends, have a great time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for enjoying your content. We'll have more content like this in the future. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that shebang. And
have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.